I think it's fair to say that Pathfinder has no shortage of classes. I mean, heck, there's arguably too many, and some of them I can't even make sense of. But you know what you can always make sense of? What's a class you can always rely on to do exactly what it's designed for? Well, you read the title of the video, so you know what I'm gonna say. If your idea of a good time is flying into a psychotic rage and smashing some heads together, well, you should probably seek some professional help, but besides that, you'd also probably enjoy playing as a barbarian. Since as far back as the 1930s with Conan, the fantasy genre has been obsessed with this archetype. A shirtless, muscular behemoth whose massive weapon is as awesome as it is impractical. Regardless of what RPG you play, more often than not this is going to take the form of a childish and brutal comic relief character like your Grogs or your Borkies, and while there's certainly nothing wrong with those, I think there's a few more flavours we can introduce you to. If you're looking to inject some Golarion specific lore into your concept, then that's what we aim to give you. So let's take a look at some of the major groups in the Inner Sea region that are all the rage these days. You can hardly have a discussion about brutally efficient warriors without bringing up a Viking berserker. Up in the land of the Linnorm kings, we find Pathfinder's answer to this trope. The Ulfen are a hardy human people accustomed to the harsh existence of the frozen north, having originated from the crown of the world, which stretches across Golarion's Arctic Circle. They used to be very reliant on raids against their neighbours to supplement their dwindling resources. They don't do that so much anymore, but they've been putting that sailing legacy to good use by daring each other to sail straight into danger, or, strangely enough, competitive racing. Well, if they want any songs written about them, they've got to impress the bards somehow. Their land is no stranger to violence, with its men and women having embraced battle as a normal part of their daily lives. These days, they exist on much more peaceful terms with the rest of Avestan, however the Ulfen are still forces to be reckoned with, feared by any who know their history. Speaking of history, what about the name of their country? Land of the Linnorm Kings. Well, a Linnorm is a powerful type of dragon. A Linnorm King is a warrior, be they man or woman, who has slain a Linnorm in single combat, perhaps using some kind of dragon slayer weapon, I don't know. Achieving this feat gives you the right to become ruler of a region, kept in check only by other more powerful Linnorm kings. This tradition was started by the legendary Sabjorn Armfang, who used the theme from this act to unite a number of tribes into his own kingdom. The tradition guarantees that all of the rulers have to be very powerful warriors in their own right. The title and the wealth that comes with it cannot be inherited unless the descendants prove themselves in battle. Today there are currently only 4 Linnorm kings. There is White Estrid, who rules the Ironbound Islands. She's noteworthy because unlike her peers, she didn't kill her dragon. She tamed it, and now it serves to defend her kingdom. Upia Eightfingers controls Southmore, but his leadership is often questioned, since nobody actually saw him kill his claim to power. He is currently missing, possibly dead, with the adventurer Oztog the Unslain claiming his seat. There's Thera Asheyes, who rules the Thanelands after succeeding her father, and finally we have the Varkie ranger Nanko, who is not even an Ulfen but became king after slaying a Linnorm and declaring himself the king of Icemark, setting a precedent that anybody badass enough can claim the title. Now obviously it's not all about their kings, so let's talk about the people who follow them. Well, the Ulfen are trained from a very young age in the ways of the sword, the axe and the shield. Their native language is Skald, and while not at sea, they usually live together in large communal halls called hearths that typically house around 20 people. Beards are extremely common, as is braided hair for both sexes. Their culture is built on the idea that honour and glory are earned through valiant deeds in combat, and ferocity and loyalty are considered very desirable traits. It is perhaps for this reason that they are often employed as bodyguards and mercenaries, none more famous than the Ulfen Guard, an elite task force of protectors for the Taldor royal family, who famously can't be bribed. So yeah, very Viking, much honour, all good stuff. But let's switch over to something completely different. Orc barbarians are the sort of thing you can find anywhere, but few have impacted the world the way the Orcs of Belkzen hold have. After the Age of Darkness, both Orcs and their longtime enemies, the Dwarves, emerged on the surface and found themselves in conflict once again. The Orcs were repeatedly forced back underground until one particular warlord, known as Belkzen, vowed to strike back. Uniting thousands under his banner, he rallied them against the dwarven sky fortress of Kojikar, killing or driving out its people over 8,000 years before the modern day. This was a very long time ago. Renaming it Urgur, he remained in power of a new Orc empire until his death. Unfortunately, he was the only thing keeping the place together, it soon dissolved due to petty squabbles and bids for dominance. While the Hold would remain a symbol of power for the Orcs to this day, fractured tribes were not much of a concern for several centuries. That is until the necromancer known as the Whispering Tyrant, Tar-Baphon, united the tribes once again in 3203 ER, returning them to their former glory while they helped him to bolster his undead army, until his defeat 600 years later. When he eventually returned after 15 centuries, he once again came to the Orcs asking for their support. The Orcs of Belkzen politely declined his offer, and he took it very well. Well, okay, he tried to beat them into submission with an army of zombies, but this is Tar-Baphon we're talking about. That's about as reasonable as you're gonna get. Realizing that they might not survive another invasion like this alone, the tribes began to form alliances once again, both with each other and nearby human nations, which had the interesting side effect of exposing the Orcs to a lot of cultural exports. Today, this savage no man's land is still firmly under the control of its numerous savage Orc tribes. Its inhospitable mountains and badlands where water is scarce and life is short has ensured that the Orcs never stray too far from their origins as violent raiders. While the tribes are comprised of mostly Orcs, they also count among their numbers giants, ettins, ogres, and a number of slaves. They distinguish themselves with unique battle standards, carrying the tribe's symbol during their frequent clashes. The names of the tribes are intended to strike fear into their enemies, and include such notable examples as Black Sun, Broken Spine, Murdered Child, and Twisted Nail, which, I mean, hold on a minute, these are just band names. Broken Spine definitely sounds like something I would get into. I'm imagining something with a very crunchy sound to it, and a lot of screaming. Now, as for how their society works, as you might expect, might makes right. Their world is based around violent upheaval, and only the strongest can rise through its ranks, usually by directly challenging their superiors in combat. It's not unusual for an Orc to last barely a day in his new position. Tribes are resourceful, employing both siege weapons and local wildlife as mounts and war beasts. Everything from wyrens and giant bears to lions and boars. They worship violent, chaotic deities such as Gorum, Rovagug, Urgathoa, and Lamashtu. What's interesting is that in their culture, they depict these deities as looking like Orcs, and they ignore aspects of that god's worship that doesn't conform to their already established culture. They also have a few ancient patrons of their own, such as Norgreth the Blood God and Zagresh the Destroyer. Alright, we've had the fan favourites, we've had the Vikings, we've had the Orcs, let's go unconventional. Perhaps most unique of all the barbarians in this video are the Geminate Invokers, who, to properly explain, we do need to give a bit of context. The dwarfs of Golarion have weathered countless existential threats over the ages, adapting to each new challenge through innovation or by embracing the answers offered by their oldest traditions. Following the fallout of Aradin's death, many dwarfs found these answers in the worship of spirits and their ancestors over gods. Among these various faiths, the Rivethun are by far the most populous and have existed for 10,000 years. Their approach to spiritualism is more akin to archivists and diplomats, rather than devout followers. Dwarven society values these spiritual mediums for the knowledge and power they can provide, but also distrust them since a Rivethun's loyalty is naturally divided between mortals and spirits. Now you're probably thinking right now, okay, that sounds a lot more like a shaman or a druid. I thought this was supposed to be about barbarians. Well, there's more than one way to invoke the power of your ancestors. Some take the form of animal companions or spellcasting, but for the Geminate Invokers, they take these spirits into their own bodies to empower themselves. They make themselves stronger, able to ignore pain or even defy death. Unlike most barbarians, Geminates are usually lawful, since theirs is a controlled rage, something they can tap into and direct. It should be noted that this kind of power, regardless of how you choose to use it, is not free. Much like how scarred flesh is more sensitive, so too is a soul. Rivethuns learn to draw strength from their most difficult and traumatic experiences, especially those from a young age. It is this sensitivity that allows them to better connect with spirits and draw on their power. Among them, those who transition between genders are quite common, so much so that in many dwarven cities the word Rivethun has become an informal term for anyone who transitions. Amongst themselves they pass on a number of recipes, rituals and formulae that help to ease these transitions and even encourage members who have no need to transition to do so on a temporary basis, mirroring the cult of the Imperial Lord Arshia. And next up we have the Shoanti, a human ethnic group that can be found all along the Starval Plateau and on the frontiers of Varisia. Now, we should give a bit of context here because this can get confusing. Varisia is essentially a frontier land on the west of Avestan, a Wild West if you will. It's home to a number of people, both the Shoanti and the Varisians being native to it, despite only one of them using the name. The land of Varisia is divided practically in half by a massive difference in elevation, with the Storval Plateau and the Cinderlands on the top, and the forests and marsh on the lower plain. Atop these dividing cliffs is where the majority of the Shoanti people can be found today. While the Shoanti are technically nomadic like their neighbours, they are much more prone to settling down into clans known as clans. Overall, the Shoanti are much fewer in number compared to Varisians, partly due to the inherently more difficult to survive in lands they occupy. But if that's true, then why would they stay up there when things are so much nicer down below? Well, it certainly wasn't by choice. Centuries ago, settlers from Cheliax founded a colony named Korvosa, along with a large bear in the heart of the Shoanti lands. This area was home to a strange and ancient pyramid that the Shoanti held sacred. Unsurprisingly, violence, as it so often does, stopped being a question and became the only answer. The Chelish colonizers and the Shoanti were at each other's throats for a prolonged and bloody conflict, which in the end meant that the Shoanti had no choice but to abandon their homes and relocate to the Cinderlands in the north. If you're wondering why it's called the Cinderlands, that's pretty straightforward. It's because things have a habit of just randomly catching on fire. So it's a pretty apt name, but also a shit place to live. To no great surprise, these two don't like each other very much, even though it's been over 300 years. The Hell Knight Order of the Nail, for example, headquartered in Varisia, has made it their mission to crusade against, and big air quotes here, uncivilized people, everyone from the Orcs to the Shoanti and the Varisians. Anyway, that's enough about their history. What about the people themselves? Well, they're tall and strong with tawny or fawn-coloured skin. When they come of age, members of a clan will receive a traditional tattoo and earn their adult names, which depending on how it was earned can be just as much of a title as it is a name. Shoanti members are easily spotted thanks to these tattoos spread across much of their body, as well as the fact that most of their adults shave their head. Their tattoos can represent their clans, their patron saints, and their deities, in a sense telling the story of their lives through the ink on their skin. Although the Shoanti people are broken up into distinct clans, there's still a lot of commonality between their traditions, particularly in regards to spirit worship. The Shoanti believe that the land is alive and every animal, plant and stone possesses a unique spirit. These spirits are forces of nature, and by honouring them, they might share with you what they can offer. For the Shoanti, every day is a challenge for survival, and every meal a gift from the spirits. These gifts, however, should never be taken for granted. A totem spirit might just as quickly withdraw its favour from those who have failed to give thanks. Hunger, sickness, war and death quickly fall on the homes of the selfish and the prideful. Since these punishments often affect an entire community, the Shoanti are often very quick to punish the guilty in order to appease the spirits. The Shoanti show their respect for the spirits through elaborate ceremonies involving music and dance. Many of their rites involve fasting or even self-inflicted pain in order to show their willingness to suffer for both wisdom and survival. This wisdom and power doesn't just apply to day-to-day living, however. Oh no, we took a long road to get here, but this does connect to barbarians. Through reverence to these totems, a Shoanti barbarian can tap into their chosen totem for a variety of powers, such as summoning a swarm of wisps to attack their enemies, breathing underwater, bleeding fire? What? They can burrow through gravel? Okay, who's been tampering with my script? That can't be real, right? It is? I think it's time we moved on, because my brain just kind of hurts thinking about the idea of barbarians popping up out of the ground like whack-a-moles. Over in the north of Avestan, we have the Kellids, who are spread across a number of territories, such as Numeria and the realm of the Mammoth Lords. Kellids are another human ethnicity known as both hunters and herders, with a dark and superstitious worldview. The tribes found alongside the frigid glaciers and sweeping taiga steeps in particular have remained relatively unchanged since their prehistoric ancestors first settled in the region. As a result of their isolation and distrust of the outside world, they have almost no concept of land ownership, farming or modern industry, which is rather impressive considering that a bunch of them live in Numeria, the same place where you can find not only a spaceship, but some of the most advanced technology in all of Golarion. Most of the Kellid people outright reject these advances out of both tradition and fear. To paint a picture of their everyday lives, the tribes can consist of as little as a few dozen people or a couple hundred, with each member having an important role to play, such as hunter-gatherers, medicine makers, scouts and even lawkeepers. The elders of a tribe make the most important decisions, relying on both their own wisdom and the answers they receive by communing with ancestral spirits. The Kellids wear simple leather and fur clothing, which they adorn with the bones and teeth of powerful animals they've killed, or even those belonging to long-dead ancestors. They usually own nothing more than that which they can carry. They prefer short, two-syllable names that have a guttural sound to them, and possibly the name of the tribe or a title as a surname. Worth mentioning is that their environment is so treacherous that Kellid children won't receive a name unless they survive their first winter. This constant threat of dying from exposure and losing everything they hold dear has afforded the Kellids a unique code of honour. They would offer shelter to even their most hated enemy, rather than let them suffer an undignified and grim death in the elements. While the Kellids might not have industry or land ownership, they do recognise authority, provided that it's earned, which led to the rise of the aptly named Mammoth Lords. As you can probably guess from the name, Mammoth Lords are tribes that have captured and trained woolly mammoths for use as guardians, hunting companions, and most prevalently as mounts. But don't be fooled into thinking these animals are tamed. These are not horses, and a careless lord can easily find themselves crushed beneath the foot of their own beast. Despite the danger, or rather because of it, the Kellids highly value these mounts, and through their strength, Mammoth Lords can shepherd hundreds of smaller tribes to their banner, creating what is known as a following. Of its hundreds or even thousands of members, a following is ruled by its most revered member, called a herder, who has the backing of a powerful family. The largest of these is the Bear Pelt following, which is ruled by a savage warlord called the Mighty Kuldor. Beset on all sides by the White Witches to the west, the demon hordes of the World Wound to the east, and the Belkzen Orcs we mentioned earlier to the south, the Mammoth Lords must fight tooth and nail to defend their territory from outsiders. We talked about this more in depth in our Numeria video, but each generation a warlord will seek to claim the title of Black Sovereign and rule over the entire country. In practice, the title of Black Sovereign means little to the tribes, since they believe that only the weak and the stupid would follow such a leader. Of course, not every tribe in Numeria is going to avoid its technological marvels forever. The temptation is just too great. I mean, can you really expect a barbarian to say no to a rocket-propelled hammer? Now, slight spoilers for the end of the Iron Gods campaign. Here's a timestamp so you can skip right past it. Since the end of Pathfinder 1st edition, the Technic League is no more, its remaining members scattered to the winds. Many of them are now serving as advisors to the various Kellid warlords who are carving up the country for themselves. They wish to embrace the power of technology, having learned to turn the League's weapons against them. Wielding an axe in one hand and a power fist in the other, they are out there pushing their fellow Kellids to abandon their fear of technology and punch those jerks in the face. And on that final note, I'm going to have to call an end to the episode and, unfortunately, an end to the show. Yeah, you heard me right, this is in fact the final episode of Lorefinder, which I imagine probably comes as something of a surprise. We certainly never expected or planned for Barbarians to be our final topic, or even for us to stop in general. This was the kind of thing when we started over 3 years ago where we just figured, yeah, we could just keep doing this forever. You know, putting out an episode every 2 weeks, every month, every 3 months, every 6 months. Yeah, you probably noticed the trend with the upload schedule. It was getting longer, it was longer and longer, and it was pretty clear to us after a point that we didn't have the time for this, and more than anything, it felt like the passion had just dried up. We focused so much in the early days on the topics we wanted to talk about that what ended up being left just didn't inspire us the way we had hoped. It felt like the time had come for us to move on. Now, does this mean that there won't be any more content on this channel? The answer is most likely yes. I have toyed with the idea of remaking the first episode if I had time, just because I'm still rather embarrassed about the pronunciation mistakes and its terrible audio quality, but other than that I have no other plans for future projects. I only say most likely because you never know what the future holds, but for now I think this is the end of the road. The channel and all of its videos will remain up, we're not going to take anything down. As for the coffee page, I'll be uploading the most recent commissions so that anybody can download them. And as for the payments themselves, you can still donate to it, but just bear in mind that at this point, it's nothing more than a tip jar. No money that goes into it will contribute to any future episodes, so if that's what you're hoping for, best to just leave it. Although while we're on the subject, I would like to thank every person who has ever contributed to that, because you are the ones who paid for these commissions. They cost quite a bit, and I went out of my way to spend pretty much everything that was left on these final pieces. And to all of our viewers, thank you. I mean, we never expected this to be successful. That first episode was born out of a conversation about what if we combined Anri and Chibi's vast Pathfinder knowledge with my very limited voiceover and video editing skills. And to our great surprise, people liked it. Way more than that poorly edited first video deserves, really. I'm genuinely proud of what we've created, and more than anything, I'm proud of the comments section, weirdly. I know that's a strange thing to say, especially on YouTube, but it's so heartwarming and refreshing to post a video and go down to the comments and watch them pour in and see people having actual legitimate discussions about the source material and asking questions. It was amazing, and I'm gonna miss that, to be honest. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for putting up with my terrible pronunciation and even worse jokes.